Today on the breakdown, all your dreams come true. Grant Dennison has the knives out for Hustler Casino Live. Owner and player Nick Vertucci. He's not coming for him personally, just for his play. Maybe, possibly, maybe personally. Sometimes Grant can't help himself. It's a big hand from Hustler Casino Live where they're playing the ante-game. And Mike X is going to be in a bit of a sticky little wicket there. Is he going to be able to dig himself out of this tough spot that Nick puts him in? I don't know. I just live here, man. On the breakdown, that's where I live. That's the only place. On the breakdown with Grant Dennison and Jonathan Levy.
A sticky wicket? I didn't know you were British. Are you a redcoat? Are you a damn redcoat?
Is that what they called them?
What color do you think they wore during the Revolutionary War?
Did I say, is that the color that they had? Or did I say, is that what they called them? Let's try and be a little better with life.
Do you know anything about history? You could call them a lobster.
Is that
lobsters? You're a lobster.
They didn't call them lobsters.
Yeah, but they should have. Wouldn't that be kind of cool?
Yeah.
It's like as a derogatory way to say British guy.
I think it's freaking awesome these days to say terms that are from a different country than your own, but work it in as if it's very natural and normal, such as sticky wicket or the boot. You know,
what does sticky wicket mean?
Might say. It's like, you know, a tough situation.
Are you sure, or are you just hoping that you're right?
Oh, I know. I've heard it used many times. Okay. I'm not an idiot. Oh, isn't it a wicket from cricket?
Yeah, so can't it also just be about the wicket being stick it in cricket? You know, like instead of it being a tough situation.
Oh, you mean metaphors don't exist? I mean, what are you talking about?
English
right
people
now?
are dry as hell. Sorry to all the British viewers and listeners.
So what does that have to do with anything in this case, though? What does that? That
How
just
could
means
they make a metaphor?
Dry people make more metaphors, not less.
Since when?
Come on. It's the slapstick American sensibilities that are ruining comedy. Jerry Seinfeld was wrong. That's the reason why comedy sucks now. I don't know.
Okay. Is just another topic. Is your neck well supported by your like $96 Amazon gaming chair? Number one gaming chair, America, go.
This is like $155 Amazon gaming chair. Thank you. And it's reasonably supported, actually, when I lean back. Yeah. I'm happy with the chair, if that's what you're asking. Thanks for checking in.
Yeah, I want to make sure that I don't want you to have to see a chiropractor while you're in Puerto Rico, because I don't know if they have good ones there. I'm just not sure.
Neither do I. I don't know either.
Yeah.
I'm sure somewhere there's a good one. Hey, how's your neck doing? I noticed it's not supported by your non-cool chair.
It's
from
supported
Amazon.
by my youth and my strength of my body, which is extreme. Yeah.
Yeah. That's what they say about you.
Yeah.
Whenever they see
That
you
guy
walk
has
by.
extreme bodily strength. That Grant Dennison. Look at him go. The sidewalk is cracking under the weight of his power.
And they're always very clear that they say bodily. They don't just say strength because it's not emotional. Emotional, absolutely not. Mental fortitude, no way.
I'm
just
like a toddler.
Physical strength. Yeah.
I'm like a very large, scary toddler because I'm extremely strong and I have no emotional control. It's really, it's amazing that I'm allowed in society.
That guy could be having the best day of his life. You say no to him about, like can I have some more? Do you have any more salt? They're like, oh, just be a second, sir. And Grant's like, starts crying.
Yeah. Sometimes
it's like
it happens.
But this is the best
I can't
day of your
control
life.
the chemistry of my emotions, you know?
Right.
It's not my fault.
It's freaking destiny, man.
I blame society and genetics. It's not
the Big
me.
Bang. Let's get to the heart of it all. It's the Big Bang.
Ultimately, yeah. Causal determinism for the win.
There
forever.
it is. There it is.
I got you on board. I got you on board with causal determinism. Yeah, don't pretend.
Not entirely.
Don't pretend.
No. I'm on board with it theoretically. Like, I understand it now, and I can't necessarily dispute it. That doesn't mean I'm totally on board with it. It's a different thing. Doesn't mean it is actually the reason why things are the way they are, you know. But
there's no why. You fool. You don't even know how to talk about it. Let's move on to the hand. This hand was suggested by Mike F, not to be confused with Mike X, who is in the hand.
What about Axel F? You know who that is?
Axel Foley?
Yeah, Beverly Hills Cop. Sequel coming to Amazon. Prime this year.
You put the
With
does he
Eddie
put the
Murphy.
banana? He better put the banana in the tailpipe again. And that's not a euphemism. That's an actual thing he did in the movie. Put a banana
I think
in
in
the tailpipe.
multiple movies.
Yeah.
He did it. Yeah. It was funny, in like 1983. I'll tell you.
Yeah.
It was. But
Everybody's like, "Those not two things that go together: a banana in a car." That's hilarious.
yeah,
I don't get it.
it was
And then
groundbreaking.
they came out with the Oscar. Then they came out with the Oscar Mayer Wienermobile, and it kind of changed the way people thought about cars. So I don't know if it any longer holds any comedic weight.
It's weird. I was
going
going to say the same thing.
I know, because it's like
It really changed
I'm
everything.
sorry I said it. I'm sorry I said that because I know it's like everybody was going to say that. I know that's the
Yeah.
normal thing to say there. So sorry for just being that guy.
No, it's fine. It's fine. Sometimes you say the obvious thing. The calls
You
of
have to.
determination.
Somebody-
You can't do anything about it anyway. You were always going to say that. We could all see it coming. Anyway.
Yeah. Okay, so this is an anti-game. There's some confusing stuff going on with the pot size.
Yeah.
We're not going to worry too much about it, but the upshot is it seems they call it the 25-50 anti-game. It seems that everybody is anti $25 based on the pot size. It seems like that's what's
Yes.
happening. And it also seems that the bring in or the to limp is $25 based on how these people play the hand. And that's as much as I'm going to tell you about that. We'll just go with what the pot size becomes as we go. Okay?
Yep.
So
Sounds great.
we got the big boss, Nick Vertucci, +1 after Dr. H, who is meaningless in this hand, calls under the gun with King Queen off. Vertucci has 34K in his stack. I've never played an anti-game, a no limit hold'em anti-game, so I have no idea what a reasonable stack is in a game. But if everybody's anteing for $25 every hand and the bring-in is $25, what do you think a reasonable stack is in that game?
Great question. Well, let's reverse engineer it a little bit. So what would a reasonable pre-flop raise size be if the pot is going to start? Like if we were under the gun and we decided we wanted to raise and not limp, the pot's going to start with $225 in it, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
but
So like
people
250
only
to
put in
300?
25. Yeah, that's probably you need to do something like that. So if we're raising 250, 300, that means we could think of it not too unlike maybe a 25-50 game sizing wise, something
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah, so you want to have like 20K plus, probably.
Yeah, that'd be great. You could do less. You could do a 10,
Yeah.
10K is fine. You got 200 blinds, you're fine. But whatever.
Yeah.
20K is great. Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
That's an interesting
Well,
question. I like that.
Vertucci's got 34K.
Okay.
And the attention of the poker world with his great stream, Hustler Casino Live.
I mean, he's
yeah.
done very well.
He has. He really just throws a bunch of whales at each other into a pit, and they all play terrible poker until somebody has a lot of money, and then people say, yay. And that's Hustler Casino Live. 10-9 of diamonds for Vertucci.
Grant hates everything. Go on.
I don't like the 8 whales in 1 pro format. I like the,
I know.
7 pros and 2 whales format.
I know. I know.
Vertucci limps.
They do this every day though. They do a Hustler Casino stream every day. They can't get pros every day, and the pros don't want to play each other, of course. So anyway, please continue.
Yeah, and they're doing very well. He's got 10-9 of diamonds. He calls. A player named Brittany, who's not going to matter and probably is losing in the game, limps with 6-4 off, +2. I say those things because of the limp.
Well, if you can limp in for 25 with the pot size being what it is, that's fine with 6-4 off. If you can get away with it, right?
She's
Like you're putting
+2.
in almost no money, but you're putting in almost no money to like have you're getting great odds immediately. So
you're saying you
it'd be
should-
better to do in late position. I'm not saying, but I'm saying it's not as bad as it sounds.
Are you saying you should
Because
limp in
the
with
pot's already
everything?
so big. I'm saying you should be a lot wider for limping if you think you can get away with limping. If you think there isn't going to be pre-flop raise that often, you should limp a lot.
Yeah,
of
sure.
hands here.
Let's have suited then. Like 6-4 suited is not usually a limp in a normal game +2, but in this game, sure,
Yeah.
let's add 6-4 suited,
No,
not 6-4
I think
off.
this is too soon. I think if she's on the button and it hasn't been raised, I think she should limp even this hand for 25 though.
Probably right. Do you think you should limp 7-3 off
No,
on the button?
I think
in
that's
that spot.
probably a bridge too far. Probably she is getting great odds, but I don't know, man. That's a tough hand to play.
Yeah.
You could,
Yeah.
I wouldn't. That feels like too much to me. I think that's too much. I don't think we should play 7-3 off.
I mean, I think it is cool to have a limping strategy in this game. We were talking briefly about the format of the game before we started recording, and I mentioned that this seems like a prime game for limp re-raise strategy because the opens are going to be so big relative to the limp size.
Yeah.
So, like, as an example, Mike X is going to make it 600 here from +3 after Brittany's limp. It's pretty sweet amount to pick up if Mike X has any width to his opens. If you are limp raising with a balanced range here, it's a pretty good game for it.
Again, also, and the pot is bigger than it would be normally, too. Normally, you just have a small blind and a big blind and someone opens. Now you get a much bigger open and a much bigger pot to clean up. I mean, it's and you have to put more money in to do this, of course, but, like, there's a lot out there for just a limp 3-bet. Yeah, it's cool.
So Mike X, I've heard people talk about him being bad. I haven't really seen a lot of him playing. Is he just bad?
I mean, I've only seen, over the last few years him playing in, like, the highlight hands that Hustler puts out. I never watched the full stream, but he's usually he's usually just way too sticky, makes way too many calls. He's just a massive station. He's cleaned that up a little bit, but he used to be like an insane station, playing way too many hands anyway and not folding them once he, gets post-flop.
Well, spoiler alert, that makes Nick Vertucci's play in this hand a little interesting. So Mike is going to raise to 600, which seems like a reasonable sizing in this game after 3 limps. 4 limps.
I think that's fine. I don't know if he needs to make it that much. He could probably make it 400. That's probably okay, too. Even 350 if it's only $25, because it's still a lot. But I don't hate 600.
Dr. H and Nick Vertucci both call with king, queen off and 10-9 suited, respectively. Brittany ends the adventure, and the pot is $2,000. That was quick.
Okay.
Went from $25 limp to $2,000 pot. We have a flop of 7 of hearts, 10 of spades, 3 of clubs. Very dry top pair flop for Nick Vertucci. King, queen off hates its life. King, jack of spades. I don't know if I said that's what Mike X has. Mike X has king, jack of spades. Is okay-ish with this flop. That 10 of spades is a nice card for the king, jack of spades.
I mean, it's not that good. I mean, it's not a great flop for us, right? Like, we have a little bit of something.
No, but that's all. It's much better to have 2 overs with the backdoor royal draw than 2 overs without the 10 of spades being there. If it were the 10 of clubs.
Course. Yeah, you'd always rather have more equity than less, but we still don't have that much equity, though, right?
It seemed like you didn't know that, though, that you want more equity.
No, you said something that's so basic and so obvious. I just thought we were past that, but apparently not. Oh, here we go. The fight's beginning.
Okay.
Right now. Let's go.
All right.
I'm ready
good
for
thing
you.
Good thing we're in different parts of the world, or else this would become violent very quickly.
Yeah, you are a violent boy, because you're strong. Everyone knows you're strong. You're very strong.
Strong and emotional. Dr. H checks. Nick Vertucci checks.
Yeah.
Is there an argument to be made for Vertucci leading top pair on this board?
For sure, there's an argument. Now,
just mostly because it's 3 ways?
Mostly because it's 3 ways, and it's the kind of board maybe not against Mike X. A good player's going to check this board back a lot, right? 3 ways on this kind of a board.
It's pretty dry. It's a pretty dry board.
10-7-4?
3.
10-7-3?
Rainbow.
It's pretty dry. I guess you're right. I mean, is Ace King supposed to bet here if we were the preflop raiser and everyone checks to us? Do you think?
I think Ace King with any of the backdoor suits should bet.
Yeah. I think you're probably right. But if it's not suited, then you think it's a check.
Yeah.
Offsuit, Ace King's a check. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think so.
They have a lot more offsuit Ace Kings than suited Ace Kings, for example, and so on and so forth with all the Broadway cards.
But any suited ace, I think, is a bet that is a heart, spade, or club here, because I can't think of one that doesn't have a backdoor straight draw with the backdoor flush draw. I think they all do on 10-7-3. So I think those all are bets.
So what do we? The problem with Nick leading, of course, is what's our plan if we lead? Are we leading to fold to a raise? That sounds bad. Hate that. Depends on. Really.
I mean, that has to be a player-dependent plan, and I've done plays like this where it's a very easy I'm just leading to protect my hand against a player who always has ace king, ace queen, or a pocket pair, and I'm kind of able to play perfectly against them, and it's an easy fold to a raise. Or sometimes there's a player who's going to raise you no matter what, and you just go with it. And so I guess you just have to know.
Right. I guess, but so I wonder if Nick is clear enough about Mike X. He might be. Now, Nick doesn't lead anyway, right? Nick checks.
No, he checks. He checks.
Yeah. So what do you think, though? Would you want to be leading here as Nick? Because you'd really kind of hate to see this check through. I mean, it's not great for it to check through. It's not the end of the world, I don't want to lead. Guess, but
no, I don't want to lead with this.
I don't want to lead either. Yeah.
No.
I think it's fine. We're overvaluing our hand a
him.
little bit to lead. Yeah.
It's not exactly that, but it's the majority of the lead is for protection There's no
Yeah.
diamond out there, so there's no like super duper turn
Mhm.
cards except for a 10 or a 9.
An 8.
If there
An
was
8
a
is
diamond
good.
out there. Yeah,
8
but
turns is
there's not like
open-ended.
but there's not like a combo draw card or anything. Top pair combo
Okay,
draw.
but you're
like-
saying, I mean, if there's one diamond out there, I guess there's the super duper cards. But like, if there's a diamond out there and we turn another diamond, we're gonna be pretty excited about that. And 8 is pretty similar then to most of the diamonds we turn.
But the 8 would be there anyway if we had 10-9 of diamonds, right? What I'm saying is I'd rather have one diamond on the
Right.
board so that
Yeah.
we have a lot more continues
Okay.
on the turn and feel really comfortable with it.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
I know you have to fight me at every turn, but sometimes I'm just right.
You said there were no.
It's-
You said there were no cards except a 10 or a 9 that we were excited about. I'm saying an 8
An
is another
8
card
is
we'd be excited
it's
about.
like okay. It's okay.
It's
fine.
It's a good card. It's a good card that gives us excellent equity, and
Fine.
it gives us like nut equity. Come on, it's a great card. Anyway, we're checking,
Yeah. So Nick
which I would
checks.
do too.
Obvi-
I would check here
Yes.
too most of the time.
Would you bet with Mike X's hand? Try to divorce
I get-
yourself
if-
from the previous conversation.
I think so. If we want to bet Ace King of Spades, why wouldn't we bet King Jack of Spades? They're basically the same
Yeah.
hand, right? Like absolutely,
Yeah.
we're betting this hand. It's not
Yeah.
super connected. I don't completely hate a check, to be clear. I think a check is okay too, but I think we want to lean towards betting a little bit here. Gives us a lot of options. There's a lot of good turn cards for us.
Yeah, I think I do completely hate a check.
Really?
Honestly, with the back door, yeah. If there was no spade, then I changed my mind. But I want to be able to rep things later on. I want to Sean Winter it here, and this is the type of hand that you absolutely have the opportunity to Sean Winter it with because you have a lot of good turn cards. Versus if we had King Jack of Diamonds, we just don't have as many good turn cards, and there's
just worry-
fewer times we want to put more money in the pot.
I just worry on this board 3 ways if we're betting too much, if we're betting every time we have backdoors like this, we're just gonna have too many bluffs, too many sort of empty bets. That's be the concern. 3 ways.
I
on
don't
this
think
board.
I don't think we necessarily are, and I think we can bet pretty small because like we want to give ourselves a good price for our opponents to have both whiffed enough to fold for a small bet. So I like a $700 bet or something like that in a 2K. I don't mind that at all. And then if we improve on the turn, if we get called in one spot or we have a range advantage card hit the turn, we can go big on the turn. It kind of depends on the situation.
It's interesting. You want to go small on a board that is better for our opponents. Like generally, what you'd want to do is go bigger.
This
when
is
the
a
board
neutral
better for your
board.
opponents.
I disagree. This is a neutral board.
I mean, I guess we could have 10s. We have 10s. They don't.
We have
Um,
sevens.
We have 7s. They might be
We
able
might
to have
have
7s. They, knowing their hands, they can have 7s and 3s. They probably can't have 10s, right? We can have 7s and 10s. So we have about the same amount of sets. No, again, knowing their hands, they can probably have hands like Ace 10 suited. But obviously
Yeah.
we can too. We have the overpairs, they don't. I guess you're right. No one really has 10-7 suited or anything like that. So
Maybe Vertucci
all right.
does. I don't know.
it's not something we should be too worried about, right? So I think it's a rainbow board, so there's only 2 combos of 10-7 suited anyway. I guess we do have an advantage here because we have the overpairs
I just think
also.
no matter what we think about the like potential scenarios, top end range things, I think a small bet is kind of just printing EV in this spot on this board.
Mm-hmm.
So I like betting. I like a small bet. Mike goes a little bigger. He bets 1,200. I don't really see the value in betting 1,200 into 2K on this board, where our opponents are going to have relatively binary decisions. Like I feel like 700 is going to get the job done at the same frequency.
Well, the difference is that for Dr. T, is it Dr. T?
Dr. H.
Dr. H. Dr. T was a Richard Gere movie, Dr. T and the Women, back
Oh,
in
yeah.
the day, where he was having sex with like 5 different women, but was also a doctor whose last name was probably started with a T. Great
Yeah.
movie.
Really, it's a top 10 movie of 1996.
So betting small gives Dr. H more calls, even though he has Nick behind him. It's not as binary, I think, with the smaller thing where he might make some more calls with like middling stuff, even with Nick behind him because it's cheaper. And if it's more expensive, Dr. H has more folds, I think, because Nick's also behind him. Nick, I think I agree, is more binary if Dr. I keep calling him T now, if Dr. H folds.
Yeah.
So that's the one thing I'll say, that this extra chunk of money gets him.
I mean, if you have any sort of suited connector that includes a 7, you're not folding for either size, right?
I don't know. It's not super easy if you have like 6-7 and Nick's behind you to auto call there.
I mean,
If it's
if
a
Nick
bigger bet.
overcalls, we kind of shut it down. But he's going to have a lot of folds after we call.
He is. That's true. That's true. Yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe he's calling with a 7 either way. If he's calling with a 7 either way, I definitely like a smaller bet.
It's not like a huge deal, but I do think it's better to bet smaller. Anyway, Mike bets 1,200.
Okay.
And
I think it's fine.
Dr. H folds because he has king queen off, and that's a terrible board for king queen off.
Yeah.
Vertucci has really no option other than to call, unless Mike X is just a complete maniac who will get it in with anything with you, and top pair is good enough to go with. But that's hard to find a spot that good.
It seems like it's a little bit optimistic, and I don't know if Mike X thinks this deeply, but if we had 10-9, we'd be targeting hands like pocket eights here to call, right?
Yeah.
And pocket eights blocks one of the most obvious draws that we would have that we might just play with, which of course 8-9. So it doesn't seem like there's a lot of ways this works out well for us if we raise, where we get value for our hand and can get it in good or anything like that. So yeah, I think a call makes a lot of sense. It sucks because of course now we're fading all the overcards and stuff gets hard, but so be it.
Yep. Vertucci calls. Normal. Good. Everybody loves it. Everybody's happy. Pot's $4,400. Again, we have on the screen, if you're watching the video, you'll see what the hands and the board are. But if you're not, you should check it out. But also the hands are King Jack of Spades for Mike X and 10-9 of Diamonds for Nick Vertucci on the 10-7-3 1 spade rainbow board. The turn is the Queen of Spades. It is really quite the card for Mike X. It brings him the open-ended straight flush draw, which includes a royal draw. That's something that everybody wants to have. Potential is exciting. Nick checks. He obviously is not happy with an overcard. It's a bad card. There's nothing to do but check here. As Mike, it's like an obvious auto bet, right? We were hoping for a card to continue on. This is kind of the card to continue on. We might even check back a jack or a king sometimes, but this is really the card to continue on.
This like demands a continue for sure. We turn all the outs in the world. It's an overcard also, which is scary. Like there's so many good things about this. We have to bet.
And how do you want to size it with 4,400 in the pot?
I want to size it so I can get anything below a 10 to fold and maybe even get some 10s to fold. That's how I want to size it. So big.
Yeah.
I think there's 4,400 in the pot. I think 3,500 is fine here. I think 3,000 is okay. I think I like 3,500 a little bit more. I don't mind building a pot if he calls anyway. We've got 1 million outs to win here. It's fine. We probably get more folds, which we'd be very happy with, but we also don't mind building the pot. How do you want to size it?
Yeah, I agree. It's possible that as Mike, we have a reputation that we can't get folds no matter how we size it against a 10, against Nick Vertucci. It's possible. But, I mean, if we literally can't get any folds, we shouldn't bet, I guess.
Right.
But
there's
obviously
for sure we should not bet.
Vertucci's not always going to have a 10, though. He'll have 8-9 sometimes. He'll have even some gut shots sometimes and some like weak hands that he can fold.
He'll have straight draws. He'll have pocket fives. He'll have all sorts of things that he can fold for sure. For sure.
Yeah. So Mike goes 4,400. I think it's
okay. He goes
from
full pot.
from like in a vacuum standpoint for getting the players. I think it's a good size. I think this does target a 10, but I think if Nick is never folding a 10 against Mike because of reputational stuff, then we might as well go a bit smaller.
For sure.
Maintains our optionality and doesn't charge us more. But from forgetting that stuff, I like the size.
If Nick is never folding a 10, we should bet like 3,100 or 3,000.
Yeah.
If Nick is folding 10s, I think 35 to 44 is all great. And we'll probably, let's put pressure on these things. And I think we should consider, bombing away on certain rivers too. Because that queen is way more us than him, right? If he doesn't have queen 10, I guess, queen 10 is like it, really. I guess he could have like queen jack with backdoor flush draw kind of a thing.
Yeah.
But we have a king and a jack in our hand, which means we block king, queen, we block queen, jack. That's pretty good. I think we should be bombing a lot of rivers here.
I think you're probably right. Nick calls with 10-9 of diamonds. And let's figure out if this is a normal call or a reputational call or a Nick is too loose call. Like, where does this fit in Nick's distribution as he is?
Good question. We don't have very many queens. That queen does not hit us very often. I mentioned the two ways really that we get there with the queen. We got suited Broadway, and we decided to take one off on the flop, which we do sometimes. But, when he makes it 1,200 and we're out of position, we might just fold that sometimes too. We don't have to call that,
Yeah.
And besides that, it's queen 10. Otherwise, we just don't have a queen. So then a 10 is really the next best thing we ever have here. We don't have queen 7 suited or anything like that. We're Nick Vertucci. We are a little bit on the tighter side pre-flop. So a 10 is way up there is what I'm getting to here. We had a lot of things on the flop, all the one pair hands on the flop and some straight draws and all that. A 10 is way near the high end of that stuff, for sure. For sure. The problem
I think we're supposed to call.
I think we're supposed to call based on that. The problem is, if Mike X is the kind of guy who just doesn't double barrel without having it, we could consider folding when the queen comes and he bets again, right? But Nick is maybe just doing some game theory stuff, or maybe knows Mike X well enough. I'm not versed enough in Mike X to know if this bet is something to be afraid of or not. He's like an older dude. Generally, those guys have it. But he did get an incredible card to continue on, too.
He did.
But I think in a vacuum, we're supposed to call because this card is this queen card just doesn't touch us very often.
Isn't it a weird feeling in poker when you have a hand like the king jack of spades on the flop and you're calling for a card in your head and the card actually comes? Isn't that a weird feeling?
It feels like magical. You're a magic man there for a second.
Yeah, it does. It feels like you're a magic man.
I remember one time I was playing one of our mixed bomb games. So we played mixed games and we played bomb pot games back when I used to live on the West Coast with you in this card room. And there's one time where we draw games. And so I remember I drew one card. I remember thinking the 5 of diamonds would make me everything. I'd make quads here and I'd also have the straight here and I'd make the low or whatever it was. And I remember looking and I pulled the card and it was like the card. And I was like, I can't believe it really happened. It's so amazing. Yeah. I still remember
what a feeling.
Feeling the 5 of diamonds. It's so perfect. And I, of course, scooped a huge pot and it was a beautiful thing. So yeah, it feels magical.
I think there's no more intense anticipation I've experienced in poker than playing Dramaha bomb pots and having an important draw in a large pot, a multi-$1,000 pot. The cards that you get in the draw really, really determine how it's going to go in a way that's you are completely dead in the water if you don't improve here.
Right. There's no betting your way out of it kind of a thing.
No.
You're not going to be able to bluff in this situation based on whatever's been happening. You know that, right?
Yeah.
It's very clear.
Yeah.
And so you have to get there. Yeah. I totally know that. It's pretty nuts.
What a feeling.
People know that feeling though too. There's certain times when the river's coming, they've made a big call or made a big bet and been called, and they're like, Jesus, I'm never gonna get a fold here. And then please God, let it be a diamond on the river.
Yeah. And you're like, can I really give up with that much money in the middle? Can I really give up?
I know.
I might have to give up. I might have to fucking give up here. Damn it. I have to. I've put in 2/3 of my stack in this tournament, and I now have to give up. That feeling sucks so bad. And sometimes I don't give up anyway, and I always get called in why didn't I give up?
Sometimes they fold even when you. Sometimes there's times where I'm I know I'm based on this situation or based on the cards in my hand, I'm supposed to go all in. I really don't think he's folding. I'm going to go all in anyway and see what happens. And they do call a lot there, but sometimes they don't, and it feels great.
Yeah, those times are amazing, especially when they fold quickly. They were also on a draw or something. Holy shit, I'm glad I did that because I had 7 high there, and how dumb would that have felt to check back? And we had a little technical difficulties. We might be on other sides of the screen. I don't know. We'll see. But let's continue with the hand instead of all that other bullshit we were talking about and get to the meaty river, because so far this has been kind of like a normal hand. Interesting hand for Mike. He makes a royal flush draw. Cool. That's nice. Now we're going to talk about why Nick Vertucci is going to get eviscerated by me unless Jonathan can successfully defend him. The river is the jack of clubs. The pot is $13,200. Mike has $13,800 in front of him. The jack is not the card Mike was looking for. Obviously, it improves his hand, but he had the straight flush draw and royal draw. He was looking more for a spade or a straightening card. Nick's hand does not look very good right now against the preflop raiser, who decided to bet the flop and the turn and has taken his foot off the gas 0%. And with that in mind, Nick's going to take his 10-9 of diamonds and just go ahead and donk move in. Jonathan Levy, defend the play.
I'm going to defend Nick Vertucci, sure. As good
Yeah.
a poker player as you think he is, he's an even better person. He's kind
I didn't
to
say
dogs.
the man. No.
He enjoys ice cream and pizza.
Yeah,
Oh.
of course. And that makes him a good
okay.
person. Enjoying
Sure,
ice
why
cream and
not?
pizza makes you a good person. It's
He's
a pretty low bar.
relatable.
Lots of people like ice cream and
Not
pizza.
all people, and the ones who don't are bastards.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so let's start with Nick does correctly realize that he's very unlikely to be ahead by the time this river comes in, right? Like that he might be ahead on the turn, but now it's really hard as he's now losing to the ace jacks and king jacks of the world, queens of the world, and even better tens. Although ace 10 would be checking back, but could have bet the turn once in a while. He's losing to all those things. It's really hard to imagine like a slightly worse hand bet the turn for full pot.
He
Very
could
often.
be against ace high still, against ace X of spades that did not improve the river.
He could, but ace king obviously just made the nuts.
Yeah.
Ace jack just beat him. King jack just beat him. I see how Nick can be like that. I am now losing to most of the range. Like I was barely okay before. Now I'm losing to most of the range. So that's part one, right? So Nick figures that out, and that's cool that he figures that out. I think he's right. He's losing to most of the range. Okay. Part two is, should we try and move that most of the range or some of that range off the hand? Well, we know we can't move ace king off the hand. We know we can't move pocket queens off the hand. We probably can't move any sets off the hand. So that's jacks and queens. Well, there's a set of tens out there, but there's only one combo, but we mostly disregard that. There's 7 combos of sets that are, there's 7 of sevens. Okay, fine. There's 10 combos of sets that are right there. Ace king is right there. And by the way, all combos of ace king exist. If Mike X bets ace king on the turn, which Nick may know that Mike X isn't doing that often.
Do we think Mike's going
right.
to fold kings or aces for a pot on the river here?
That's a great question. I don't know. It's pretty strong when we move in. Kings or aces block ace king and is a good hand, but would Nick move in for value with a worse hand than pocket kings? I think is a really good question.
Okay. This
Probably
is a
not.
fair thought, but you did start this podcast by saying that Mike X is a known station who pretty much just never folds. So
he at least used to be. I haven't seen him play in a while, but back in the day, he was a massive, massive station. If that's true, that ain't great. Unless it's Nick, we know he's trying to find folds. You know, he's trying to be better. Maybe that helps. But it's not a great piece of alchemy to take. Ace king is the nuts, and he can have it, and I can't. And he's probably, and he's a station. My story is not amazing by any means. What is my story here, right? Queen jack?
8-9.
Queen
It's
jack?
8-9.
8-9 calls the turn? Oh, yeah, it's open-ended. It calls pot on the turn.
I don't know. 8-9 of spades.
8-9 of spades. 8-9 check calls pot instead of just moves in. Maybe sometimes. There's not much.
Maybe.
There's not much. Our story is bad. Like, we as Nick Vertucci are good at our story. I mean, we as Nick Vertucci know that ace king is the nuts and would be unlikely to move in with almost any hand, maybe our entire range, when the jack comes in, right? In theory, for value, because we know ace king just got there. And why do we want to move into the nuts? Unless we think Mike X is only betting ace king of spades on the turn, and then there's only one combo of that. And then it's less of a problem if we have 8-9.
Fine, all that's fine, but and I know I put you in the impossible position of defending a play that I already had a lot of negative thoughts about.
Yeah.
But the biggest problem to me is that beyond Mike X being a station and a whale who is less likely to fold than your average player, he is not slowed down at all. He raised pre-flop, he bet the flop, he bet the turn. There is no indication that he has a weak hand in any way. There's
correct.
And it's not like the board is run out in such a way that it's advantageous to Nick as played. It's advantageous to Mike as played.
For sure.
So beyond the fact that Nick is probably not winning the majority of the time, there isn't a very good reason to move in, because even if you're not winning the majority of the time, if you can't get your opponent to fold, that's just losing more money when you move in.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. No, you have to be able to successfully fold them out. Our story is, as we said, horrible. I guess I can make a case that 8-9 could move in here, trying to make sure it gets called, because it's going to lose all its money to ace king anyway, right? It's not folding. So 8-9
Well-
can move in because it doesn't matter. It might lose less than moving in though. Is the one thing, right? If it checks.
You're about to see evidence that 8-9 should definitely move in. You're about to witness the evidence.
Right. Well, because we could
That
move
8-9
in with 8-9 trying to get called by not this hand, but like aces and kings potentially. Sets we assume we're going to get it all anyway. Also, I think. But aces
Yeah.
or kings might find a check back with the jack. I think they probably have to because a lot of 2-pair hands come in and 8-9 comes in, right? Like hard to get value except against ace queen, which we probably block. I guess we could have kings and we could target exactly ace queen, but there's probably not enough combos of that compared to all the combos that are going to not fold that we lose to when we can just check back comfortably. So we would only be targeting over pairs if we moved in with 8-9, I think. I guess
Yeah,
in
you're
sets.
probably right.
We'd be targeting sets too. But no, sets we're going to get it anyway, so it doesn't matter.
So we don't like Nick's move in, but it should work, right? It should work against King Jack. I mean, Mike has King Jack of spades on 7, 10, 3, Queen Jack with two
We block
spades.
all the draws. Now we block ace king, but he can't have ace king anyway. Nick never has ace king in a million years, right? Pretty much.
Never.
So
Never. And
blocking ace king doesn't
we-
matter. We block king 9, which mostly doesn't matter.
We
either.
don't. We don't block King 9.
We don't.
I mean, no,
have a
Nick's,
king in our
Nick's
hand.
only King 9 that he gets here with is King 9 of spades. Right. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I guess. So yeah. We block the
We have
one
the king of
combo
spades
that
in
he
our
gets
hand.
here with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But so we're blocking all the things. Like if Nick somehow had king jack and took one off on the flop, we're blocking that as well. By the way, we're chopping with it either way. It's weird for him to
Yeah.
move in with king jack here. Why would he move in with king jack? He could check and sometimes win. Now maybe he would move in because he has 10-9 and moves in. It's not that different, right? It's different, but it's not that different. I'm not sure we're supposed to call with this hand in this spot. It doesn't seem like we're supposed to call with this hand in this spot.
It does not. And I mean, like, the blocker value is, I think, one combo of quality blocker value. We block King 9 of spades. We also block King 8 of spades, which we would not want to block, which is a potential hand that Nick could make it here with. If he floats 2 backdoors on the flop, gets a great turn card, and then goes for it.
Okay, so we block one and we unblock the other one. Great, 50-50. But we block King Jack. Again, King Jack, I guess, shouldn't be moving in very often anyway. And also, is Nick really going to play? Is Nick going to play King 8 of spades like this and King 9 of spades like this anyway? Not that often, by the way. He's usually not going to check call out of position, pot size bet on the turn. He might, but a lot of the time he's going to play it more aggressively, right? At least some of the time he's going to play those hands more aggressively.
He might move it.
So it doesn't. So it doesn't even have these hands that much. The question is, what does he have then? What is he moving in with? What bluffs does he have beyond?
I mean, 8-9 makes
is a
sense,
straight.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, for what does he have? 8-9 makes sense.
8-9 makes sense.
He could have a set of 7s or a set of 3s and have played it kind of strange.
That is very strange. I guess possible, but very strange. Would he even move in with a set of 7s right now when Ace King comes in? Maybe he would. Maybe it's all the same. But there's less things to call you with than like 8-9. Where now you get called by all the sets with 8-9. And now when all the sets call you in your pocket 7s, you lose instead of win. There's a lot. Like you know, the pool of hands that call you are much better for you when you've got 8-9 than pocket 7s in this spot.
Yeah, that's true. But I mean, let's assume that Nick's expanding his value range because he seems to be expanding his bluff range. He could also, for value, have Queen Jack of Hearts, one combo, Queen Jack of Hearts specifically. The back door that is not blocked, then make 2 pair.
I guess. I mean, he blocks 2 of the sets. That's good. It's not amazing. Is Nick really going to move in there with that hand? Maybe because we're short enough, you could decide it's a pot size bet anyway. And we're getting it in. Every time he's got me beat, we're getting it in. I guess you could talk yourself into that with Queen Jack. We're not going to fold Queen Jack, right? Top 2. So I guess we're calling. So then we can move in to try and get called by aces and kings instead of letting him check it back. I guess we could do that. Okay. Queen Jack of Hearts. This is a problem. We're coming up with more hands he could have.
I mean, you could. There. You wouldn't expect him to play these hands this way either, but he could have 5-6 of spades and 4-5 of spades potentially. I mean, like they would at least be reasonable for him to get to the river with as bluffs,
and then just take a wild shot.
You expect him to shove the turn. I mean, this is kind of a wild shot with 10-9 of diamonds anyway. So
It is.
it's You'd expect him
10
to shove the
nine
turn
diamonds-
with those hands though more.
10 of diamonds at least blocks some things. You could, I mean, here's the defense for Nick, I guess, is it's hard for us to have. There aren't that many better bluffing hands maybe than this. Well, that's not true. That's just not true what I said. We don't have any spades, which is good. We block a set of tens, which is good. We block 8-9, which is good. But we'd way rather have king 10 than 10-9, right? Because like Mike X doesn't have 8-9 or king 9 almost ever, but he sure has ace king, right?
Yep.
So king 10 of diamonds is so much better than 9-10 of diamonds as a blocking hand. That may be the best blocking hand though. The best bluffing hand, basically.
I
or
mean,
one of those is king queen, king 10, king jack are all the same that don't have a spade, right?
It is our job to try to find these like what's the best bluff thing type scenarios here, but like is there a best bluff against Mike X in this spot where he bet pot on the turn and has been the aggressor? Maybe we just don't bluff. Like maybe that's the move.
We take our one pair, we check, and we hope against hope that Mike X doesn't put any more money in the pot. Basically, I mean, we could have folded the turn, even though we didn't, but we could have folded the turn. But if we're calling the turn, this is one of those hands we just have to check fold on the river, I think is what is really the point. I'm agreeing with you. Like there's part of your range you have to do that with. Like sometimes it goes check on the river because you're sort of like seeing if he's going to, we're playing, I think Bart Hansen calls it like chicken, like Fifth Street chicken, which is like, I called you on the turn and I'm folding the river if you bet again, but it's hard to bet again. And so let's see if you actually do it. You know, sometimes you're just going to give up because you're not going to turn all your bluffs into bluffs on the river as well. You're going to give up with a bunch of your bluffs and I get to win. Mike X doesn't have very many of those, but he might have a few and we get to win. But mostly, we just lose. And I mean, it's really supposed to work though against this hand, which is what's got to be really rough for Nick here is you caught the part of the range you were hoping to catch and you still lose. I mean, that's rough.
Yeah.
And it says like, I guess we should not be bluffing Mike X in this spot ever with like any kind of hand.
Because Mike fucking calls with this hand, which like, I think we agree he shouldn't. Like we didn't talk about the full reasons why he shouldn't call with this hand, but we tried to find reasons to call with the hand. We couldn't really do that. If we just do pure value distribution, this is very low in Mike X's range. As we said,
so low.
From Nick's perspective, that Mike has not taken his foot off the gas. He obviously has overpairs. He has aces and kings. He obviously has sets. He has pretty much, he might have every set on the board. If he doesn't raise threes pre-flop, fine. He has every other set on the board. He has two pair combos. He has straights. Like he has tons of things he can call with. He does not have to call with his hand.
Yeah.
It's a bad call. It's obviously a bad call, and Nick should have won.
It's shocking to me that this call was made. And it's wild because Hustler, when they made the video of this hand and put it out, they called it deep down, he knows he has to call. And I was like, oh, fascinating. Like so I watched it, and when the hand ended, I was like, is there another hand after this? Like, there must be more hands because they can't mean this hand. Deep down, he knows he has to call, but that was then the end of the video. There was no more hands. And I was like, how is this deep down he knows he has to call?
Are you sure that's the end of the video? I thought it was a three.
If there's more hands, there's nothing where there's any big decisions like that. Whatever it is. Like I went looking to see if there could be any other hands on it. You're right. They usually show like 14 minutes and it's usually like 3 hands.
Yeah.
But there was nothing else where there was a big decision like that at the end, which was a deep down, you have to call spot. And it's like, I couldn't tell if the person who wrote the headline thinks that or if they're just, and much more likely, just writing quality clickbait, which worked on me. So congratulations if you did it. You did great.
It could be trolling Mike X. It could just be trolling Mike X. Like,
yeah.
Yeah.
Or even trolling Nick Vertucci. Really, Mike X did make the call. Yeah, and also they do things. Hustler will put out things where I think they'll make their whales feel good. Like they did a thing with Mickey. Yeah. Remember Mickey, the baccarat player, supposedly?
Yeah.
Who's like
he's a professional baccarat player.
He's clearly just a trust fund kid, right? Like almost certainly he's a trust fund kid,
or some sort of illegal venture. But
whatever
something
it is.
Like that.
But where they said genius speech player makes blah 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 blah, and I'm like, yeah, you guys, you're doing anything you can to bring Mickey back to the game, so the other good players will come and play, right, for these bigger games, because Mickey's nowhere near a genius speech player at all. Like, come on. Like, Garrett folded once when Mickey said something, and we're pretending it's because Mickey's genius instead of it was the part of the distribution Garrett has to fold and blah blah blah. So there's a whole thing going on there, which is questionable at best with the YouTube headlines, YouTube titles.
Who played? Quick upshot.
played it worse?
Who played the river? Who played the river worse? I think they both played the rest of the hand fine.
I'm gonna go with Mike X here. Played the river worse, even though he ended up with all the money. I think Mike X shouldn't be able to beat anything. Nick moved in with a questionable hand, but at least there are parts of Mike X's range that we should be able to fold out that we are losing to, like that, and including this hand, like that should work some of the time. When Mike X calls here, it's so hard to come up with a hand that Nick has that he played this way. We came up with a few combos of spades. There's like 4 combos of spades or something like that he might play this way, and everything else is dead. We have all the wrong blockers. I think Mike played it worse. What do you think?
I think from a technical perspective, Mike played it worse for all of the reasons you said. He's never supposed to call with this hand based on everything that we know about technical poker. And if Nick is trying to find bluffs, you can use technical stuff to justify turning 10-9 into a bluff. At least it blocks some things that we want Mike X not to have.
Right.
But from like a practical who I'm playing against perspective, I think Nick just lit $14,000 on fire, and that might be worse.
You know what? That's a great point. Like, you could throw out all the computer stuff, all the GTO stuff, everything, if the guy is never going to fucking fold, and you're bluffing.
Right.
Like, you should just never bluff. I don't care what your blockers are. I don't care what the board is. The guy's never going to fold. Don't bluff so you can tell someone later the guy should have folded. Just keep your money, man. Right?
Yep.
So that's a really good point.
Some people play poker for the stories. Some people play it for the money.
Yeah.
I don't know which one Nick's doing.
As you often have liked to said in the past, giving up is underrated, right? And this is a give up spot for Nick. And he does get to win a tiny bit of the time, a very, very, very small amount of the time. He does get to win, right? Once in a while, Mike X has ace 8 of spades and checks back, or something like ace 5 of spades and checks back. Mostly not.
Sometimes you just
once
lose.
in a while. Yeah. And I think you just have to take the L here. It's an interesting play by Nick, and like you said, I think it's Nick trying to find more bluffs, trying to be less of a nit. And maybe there's value for Nick doing this. There's a metagame value because he's seen as such a tight player, because he's the only guy who can be on Hustler Casino.
Could be.
So having a few weird bluffs like this, a few weird donk bluffs, will get maybe that'll pay off for him in the future as some of the other players see him doing it. But there aren't enough good players maybe for it to matter either. Like, Rampage will notice, Mariano will notice, but those guys don't play enough, do they? Like, a lot of the regulars are going to not remember that Nick did this or care. And that's also problematic.
And isn't Nick famous for setting the lineup such that he gets to be like somehow the best player in a high stakes game, which is impossible?
Well, at least like the third best player, like pretty much always. Yeah. Yeah, he's known for that for sure. For sure. I mean, he has ultimate power there, right? I mean, it's crazy. It's a crazy situation that should be rectified and has not.
So he'll be fine even though this happened. Congratulations, Nick. He'll be fine.